Good evening. Name is Prentice Potts. I am here to went too fast. Here to do my leadership interview with the audio voiceover. This is for management strategy 5355. So, just kind of getting into an overview, basically a table of contents of what I'm going to be covering. First, background of the young man that was interviewed, background of the company, the purpose of this assignment, the company's business strategy, tactics used to execute their strategy, how they measure their success, any changes for the future that that company or the interviewee may have, future plans, advice to the students, and then kind of a wrap up with a conclusion. So a little bit about the gentleman that I interviewed, excuse me. His name is Desney Glover. He grew up in a military family, which he traveled often in his life. The way I came to know Desney is he actually moved from Hawaii to Shawnee Mission in the year 1999. Um, and I had the opportunity to spend the next 2 years of high school with him, which upon graduation of Shawnee Mission North, he went to K-State University, where he graduated in 2005 as a double finance major. He then worked at Farmers Insurance, where he met his wife, Savannah Fernandez. Um, they got married in 2013. They have a young son now, Devin Glover, and I believe they had Devin in 2016, I believe. Uh, Desney currently works for Jackson. Oh, excuse me. He worked before Colonial. He worked at Jackson National Life Insurance from 2013 to 2017. He currently works for Colonial Life Insurance, where he's an associate territory manager. One of the words of wisdom as I was speaking to Desney was, control what you can control. I think he lives a lot of his life regarding that, and not really spending too much time or energy on things that do not dictate anything in his life. So it's good piece of advice. So a little background about Colonial Life Insurance. Obviously, it is a insurance company. They provide insurance to business. They try to insure the workers of that business. They've been in business for about 80 years. They employ over 10,000 people. 1,200 of those are actually in-home sales representatives, so they actually work from home. The company serves 4 million customers and about 85,000 companies. So it's pretty big company. They also enforce over 1.5 billion in premiums yearly, which is a lot of money being paid out and to their workers or the workers who they provide insurance to. Their headquarters is located in South Carolina. So the purpose, the goal of this assignment was to really connect with leaders and learn their strategies that somehow may connect with current MBA students such as myself within the process of establishing and building a strategy to the skills to become better leaders in the world as we know it as corporate America. The biggest thing for me in doing this assignment is I get to see a different side of the MBA and what it could actually be used to. My goal for getting my MBA pertains to me becoming a building leader in my school district and using the knowledge that I've gained to help with budgets, to help with any type of internal issues that we may have, or even external issues, dealing with stakeholders that keep themselves involved with our school district. So the purpose of my MBA is completely different than probably 95% of the students and the people that are actually in corporate America today. Unfortunately, Desney does not have an MBA, but a lot of his colleagues and coworkers do. So it was interesting to hear his take on, how he's able to become successful, and he has thought about going back to obtain an MBA. So So Colonial's business strategy is simple. Their strategy is to partner with as many businesses as possible, and to try to protect as many workers as possible. They do that, and they're trained through workshops and on site training programs that are local, regional, and national. Um, Colonial is a leader in the area of territory to be strategic and a visionary presence for their respective sales team. So a lot of their job and a lot of the things that they do, and the services that they provide are based on, how many businesses have they come in contact with, how are they able to network with these companies, and encourage their employees to use their services to help protect them, or help them in the long haul, when they become older, and things of that nature. So um, overall strategy, and how they do that is just being effectively trained, to a capacity that their sales team is able to show companies the best part of insurance, and not the part that I think a lot of us are familiar with auto and home and things like that. So Colonial's tactics, the biggest one that Desney spoke about was networking. I think that's the thing that stood out to me the most, when we were speaking, is just the grassroots of how the basic networking skills and people skills, and just having soft skills, are such a benefit to him in this profession. Um, you know, the business networking is something that I tend to forget about, but it's one of those things that is crucial when you're dealing with sales, when you're dealing with growth, and just really brainstorming to create new ideas and different angles that you can bring new companies in to possibly find a solution, or even create something that's innovative, that could possibly change the future. So one of the things that he did speak about is they believe in good old hard work, rolling up the sleeves and getting into the community and shaking hands. So that goes back to the soft skill portion. But the networking piece was huge. Them just getting out in front of colleges, vendors, career fairs, anywhere to meet new people, new companies, new businesses, things like that. So how do they measure success? How does Colonial measure their success? Uh, you know, most corporate companies do quarterly, weekly, not weekly, excuse me, quarterly and yearly forecasts and things like that to determine, are they on track business wise, number wise, money wise? Have they met their quotas that they need to meet to stay on track? Um, Des spoke about success is measured based on how many successful enrollments they have. So enrollments are just new clients that they have quarterly and yearly. So obviously it's very black and white. If the numbers are high, then obviously it's a good quarter. If they're low, then it was more than likely a bad quarter. So um, that's the gist of it. Changes for the future. Colonial will look to shape the future in how people look at insurance. Like I said, in previous slides, people think of insurance as such a negative or ugly word, because it's something that tends to always happen. And honestly, it's the same way. Like when I spoke to him, when I think of insurance, I think of auto insurance, I think of collisions. My wife worked for Farmers Insurance for a while, well, not a while, about a year. And I just hearing how some of her phone calls and things, transpired, and how it's always them saying, "Oh no, well, you're liable," or "No, we can't give you money for that because this wasn't covered." And it's almost in some sense to me, or can feel like a ripoff or a sham, because for those people who never have a car wreck or have an incident where that insurance is needed, you pay all this money for something that you never used. Colonial, the best thing about it is they pay claims. Colonial's goal is to help everyone understand that they exist to make sure no one suffers financially due to a medical event. So that's huge. For Des, his future plans, we spoke a while back before he took this position, and I know he wanted to, put himself in a position where he could retire at the age of 55. One of the things that Des has always spoke about is possibly having his own insurance company or just office where he was pretty much his own boss. His 5-year vision is 5 million lives protected, 1 billion in sales, and that's huge. He recently just got promoted to a VP territory manager, which is going to put him in a position where he's actually over an entire area. So I think Des is well on his way for his 5-year vision plan. Dez's advice for MBA students, obviously Des does not have an MBA and feels like he doesn't need one. Like I said, a lot of his colleagues who are in higher positions do have MBAs. I spoke to Des about possibly going back to get an MBA, and he said he has thought about it, but cannot find the time in his schedule to do it. It's interesting because he told me a story about he travels a lot, and his home station is Kansas City, so he's able to come back, 2 or 3 days out of the week, and then he's usually traveling another 4 or 5. But he gets a T-shirt from every local college of the cities that he goes to for his son, because he wants his son to be familiar with education, but he wants his son to ask questions about schools and want to have a higher education, which to me is fascinating. And that's kind of where Desi went with it obtaining an MBA is a great feat. It's a great success. It's the plan of what do you do after you get it that he was more, into. And I think because he has seen so much success without doing it, his advice was simple. If you do it, great. But after you do it, make sure you got a plan. And if you don't do it, make sure you got a plan. What's your 5-year vision? How do you see it playing out in a role of you obtaining an MBA or you not obtaining an MBA and you going the route that Desney did? So he's a big promoter on higher education, but also a big promoter in hard work. And, sometimes you don't need to get an MBA to, obtain certain positions and achieve certain things in life. So, the overall experience was great. I love speaking with Desney and just hearing about his adventures and endeavors on things that he's done in his life. And it's fascinating because they're so different from what I've been able to accomplish and what he's accomplished. And, seeing him as a 16-year-old and seeing him now as a 37-year-old, he's very, very successful. And, it's a great person to know, and I'm thrilled to have him as my friend. So that's my presentation for my interviewer leadership. Thank you for listening. Have a great evening.